many AAA titles, including Assassin's Creed, Batman, or Immortals Phoenix Rising. So, Ashley, I welcome you on stage, and the stage is yours. Thank you.
Cool. Hello, everyone. I just want you to know that you are in the right talk. I have accidentally changed the title of the talk to character creation instead of captivating characters, but you are in the right talk, I assure you. So, as you said, I'm Ashley Sparling, and I own K9 Digital along with my wife. Unfortunately, she's not here today because our actual K9 is feeling a little bit under the weather, so she's looking after him today. So, here's a few of the companies that I've worked for over the 15 years in my industry. So you'll notice there's Lionhead Studios. I always point out that one because it makes me very sad that Lionhead doesn't exist anymore. So we do the Hunger Games. So, yeah, I've worked as a lead character artist at Ubisoft and at Jagex and at Splash Damage as well. So K9 Digital, I'll tell you a little bit about K9. It's a character outsourcing studio. So we've only actually been going since February, and it started off as myself and Tia. Tia is my wife, and she does all like the financial sides and all of that, and I don't like that stuff. I just like the artwork, so I'm a terrible CEO. But we just started off just doing character models, and within the first couple of months, we started to get so many projects coming in. I think I was working on like 4 projects just on my own, and I was to the point I was burning the candle at both sides. I was like, please, Tia, can we hire someone? So we made our first contract artist, and then things just started rolling from there. And now we're at 6 full-time employees. So some of my team are sitting in the front there, so if they start hackling me, just tell them, shut up. No, I'm joking. No, I love these guys. They're awesome. So here's a few of my work that I've done. Some stuff from Assassin's Creed, and do you guys know Ghost, the rock band? Yeah, massive fan of Ghost. So you got Papa over there. So, and the top left hand is like an R&D project I was trying to push to see how far we can get in Unreal. So it's a cool project. So, starting off with characters. So as a lead, I would work very, very closely with art directors. And sometimes the art director knew what they want, sometimes they didn't know what they want. So it kind of varies. So I built this scale to kind of help art directors understand what they want. So obviously, I'm standing right in front of where it says stylized, just in case you didn't know that. So this is like a good bell curve to be like, okay, where are we going? Are we going to go super stylized like Mario, or are we going to go realistic like Call of Duty? And sometimes I find it's quite good not to just like 100% aim for one of them. So, for example, like a blend between Apex and I've forgotten the name of the game. I can't even remember the name of the game, and I worked at that company. That is really bad. So, anyway, but trying to mix up the styles, because you could go for like a more of a realistic kind of style with a bit of stylized, so it's kind of like hyper real. But I always find with games, even Assassin's Creed, yes, it's realistic, but you're going to want to push some of those proportions a little bit more. So I always say we're going for a hyper real kind of thing. Okay. So when it comes to concept art, I'm a little bit picky when it comes to concepts, and when I get our concept artists to do stuff, it's I had to make sure it's really, really clean. So here's a few examples. These aren't work that's done by my studio. It's just concepts that I like and that I think represent what I'm going to say quite well. So I'm sorry if the person is here, the person who did the one right at the far end. Although it is a beautiful concept, it has some really, really nice silhouettes going on to it. I can't actually tell what the materials are. So there would be a lot of back and forth with the concept artist trying to work out this stuff, or they would have to do extra call-outs and things like that. So I would find that this would be a very, very complicated piece to make. So when I'm looking for concepts and concept artists and things like that, I like to have really, really clean concepts, really, really nice line work, and I like to be able to see what the materials are. So you can see, well, on all of these, you can see that there's leather, there's metal. You can tell what elements are needed. So these are very, very good concepts to work from. So once we've got the concept art, what do we do next? We build the model. So proportion. Proportion is so important in characters. Evidently it is, because we need to make the characters to be believable. Anatomy is a big, big factor when it comes to, well, concept art, 3D modeling, animation, even rigging. Even a rigger needs to know the anatomy of the body. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. It's an artist called Andrew Loomis, and this image has been around for years and years, and he basically created the 7.5 head theory. So in video games, we don't tend to do the 7.5 head guy with a little mustache, because it's a little bit weak, it's a little bit boring. When we come to do hero characters, we end up going towards like the 8 and the 8.5 head high, just because they look a little bit more heroic. What's that word? I have seen the 9 head high character before. It was in a God of War game. I was actually had the art book, and I was like looking through, admiring the beautiful artwork, and I suddenly noticed that the arms were really, really long, and I was like, oh, damn, they did the 9 head high character thing. And it worked really, really well for the game because it was heroic, it worked really good. But on an average, you'd have to speak to your art director. We kind of go for about an 8 head high, 8.5 head high, just because, for one, it's easier to break down the proportions, and it looks a lot better than the poor little 7.5 head guy. So once we've done that, so I took one of the concepts, and my process, and it's what I get my artists to do, is blockouts. So there's a few reasons why we do blockouts. We could spend hours and hours and hours just working on that helmet and just getting it looking really, really right. And then we are like, oh crap, it's been 2 weeks and I've only done the helmet. Oh gosh, I've got to get the rest of this character made. So what I always say is the first few days, just block out the character. I even do the color island pieces, just so I know how much I've got to make, what elements need to be made. And this also helps when you come to do texturing. So a lot of the time video games are going into more of a customizable asset. So this helps really well to break down customization, elements that need to be made. And also doing these things within 2 to 3 days, or sometimes you might get a little bit longer. It's good for animation and riggers, because one of the biggest things I've heard is the character artists are bottlenecks. We don't get the work done because the character artists are taking far too long with their models and doing this fine little detail that you're never going to see. So how do we avoid that? Blockouts. We get the blockout over to the riggers as soon as possible, because we need to get that in-game, because we need to see, for one, how it works with animation, how it works in silhouettes, because there's no point us creating the whole character and, the art director says, well, actually, I want these horns are a lot bigger. And we're like, oh, crap. We just baked everything now, and, it's going to muck up the normal maps and yada, yada, yada. So creating this grayscale blockout really, really helps riggers, designers, animators to get the elements of what they need. And it stops character artists being a bottleneck. So If you don't use this technique, it's really good. You can even go a little bit further in detail with this, not too much, but just really bringing in those elements that would be animated so the riggers can start doing their job. So here we're going to talk about captivating characters. So I hate it when people say, oh yeah, the NPCs or whatever, we're just going to have generic characters. You know, I get it. But it's always good to try and add a little bit of story when it comes to your characters. And I love these like old black and white photos. And I did a lot of research in how your face changes to the different environments and like different situations. So the guy on the left, where it says 1941, he was a painter, and you know, very nice looking guy, nice smooth skin, nice flowing hair, and then he got called to go to war. So after he went to war, they then took another photo when he came back, and you can tell from that photo, he's seen shit. You know, he's had a very, very hard time, probably malnourished, not enough sunlight, bags under his eyes. You know, it's crazy how much stress and lack of eating, lack of sunlight can actually change your face. It's quite crazy, really. So I'd try and like add these kind of elements into my character instead of just doing a nice smooth skin like metahuman characters, which nothing wrong with metahuman characters. They do look very, very nice. But just to add those like storytelling into them, like really helps kick your characters into being more believable. Okay. Even with these photos, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the like old jailers' photos and things like that, but like their faces have such story in them. Like the lady in the top right, you know, she killed her husband by taking out his eyes with a spoon and then frying them up as a dinner. I'm only joking. I don't know what she did, but but you could believe it, right? You know, she has that sinister look about her. Yeah, and the poor guy on the bottom right, you know, that's just a face that a mother could love, you know. But they have such story in their faces, you know. They're all villains, or are they? But they have such, I don't know, charisma in their faces, and you can really, really break down these faces to see, okay, well, this guy got punched in the nose for, I don't know, stealing a loaf of bread. I don't know, you know. But it's looking at these things and really, really analysing and breaking down what has caused their faces to be like that. So wrinkles tell a massive, massive part of storytelling. You know, static wrinkles, you know, when you smile all the time, you know, you get, I've got them, crow lines or whatever, you start to get memory folds in your face. Yes, memory folds are in clothes, but they also happen in your face because you're doing these expressions every day. And your skin kind of breaks down after time when it's starting to like break down the muscle and fat and things. So you start to get these kind of lines. So as I said, static wrinkle lines is where someone's squinting all the time or smiling. The smoker's lines are pretty cool. So if somebody's smoking all the time, you get these lines on the lips. So you can build that into your characters, you know, having these kind of things. I can't read that word because I'm dyslexic, but this is like a breakdown of like sunlight and harsh weather conditions. You know, this, you can see that her skin is much more leathery and, you know, yes, she's probably been squinting all that time with the wind or something on her face. You know, these are really, really cool elements to add into your faces. Obviously, you don't have to just do wrinkly old people, but adding this kind of layer to your characters gives it like an extra texture to it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about referencing, and I love Alan Rickman. God rest his soul, an amazing, amazing actor. And I was trying to do like a version of him in 3D. Unfortunately, I don't actually show you that version, but it's on my Instagram if you wanted to see it. But one of the things I always do when looking for faces, and even when you're working in games or something like that, it's always good to have some form of reference. Now, it doesn't have to look, obviously, I can't put Alan Rickman in a game because I'll get sued. You know, we did have a problem with that on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where one of the characters was very, very on the tipping verge of a very, very famous actor, and marketing were like, we gotta change that. So the character artist did a very, very good job of a likeness, but we had to do it. So normally what I say is we kind of pick like 2 to 3 actors, actresses, and kind of like do a Frankenstein with them, just to kind of like merge it up a little bit. But the reason why we use actors is because a lot of the time you can get a good side view, front view, 3/4 view, upside down view. You know, if you go on Getty Image and look at the Oscars and stuff like that, they have really, really, really high resolution images which work perfectly for this stuff. So, as I said, you can mix up actors. I wanted to do a likeness, so I chose Alan Rickman. And I would say the most important image out of all of these is the side view. Now, the reason why the side view is so important is my team are going to go, oh, when they hear this. Well, one of them is anyway, is I look for a very, very specific kind of bone on the face just to kind of build in the scaffolding. And that's a thing called, have I got a laser on this? I'm going to go point at it. It's this thing, the zygomatic arch. Now, this is, I didn't hear a, oh, so that's all right then. This is the scaffolding of the face. And no matter what side view you get, you'll always be able to see this. And I use this as a very, very good landmark because it lines everything up. It lines up where the edge of the nose is, where the orbital arch is. That leads into the temple bones. It's, if you can't see that on your character, then it's you failed, basically, because every character, whether you're a creature, an animal, you all have this zygomatic arch, okay? This is an actual reference board that I use, so I always try to put a skull in it, even though I know a skull like the back of my head. That's a really bad pun, but never mind. I always try and add it because it's just like a reminder just to be like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Another really good reference is if you can find face casts. Now, a lot of actors have had their faces cast. So they're the things down at the bottom. They're kind of like, they're also known as death masks as well. So, but they're so good because they not only just show you the form without color, but they can show you the detail and things with the face. I always try to grab some scan data as well because scan data is so good at showing you form. So I think with photos, when looking at photos, you can kind of get a little bit lost because your mind gets blurry with the actual colors with it. So something I do is once I've got all my reference images, I completely do a grayscale of it and whack up the contrast because I want to see those forms. And that's what's building up your face. You know, you do have muscles and things like that, but fat is such an important part of building up the face. And the way that we can see that is with forms. Okay. I also add some line work on there just to measure some areas up. So this was the Buck character that you saw at the very, very beginning. So this is it's not scan, sorry. This is all hand sculpted. This does use scan for the detail, the small detail. But you can see where I've kind of like builds up the face. In some areas, it does look a little bit more pushed. That's intentional. So when working in ZBrush or Mudbox or Blender, you're just looking at a grayscale model. But once you start putting it into the engine and you start adding like the subsurface scattering and all things like that, it kind of blurs out some of those forms. So I always do a exaggeration a little bit with that stuff. So with doing skin detail, there's so many different ways to do it. Using scan textures from like XYZ and ScanStore. They're really, really good. It's what kind of like pops it to reality. But yes, I know they can be very, very expensive as well, and not everybody can afford them. But you can create really, really nice looking skin detail within ZBrush. So all of this stuff that's being done right here is just using the surface noisemaker, basically. And it's just one alpha texture. Within the noisemaker, you can actually squash and stretch these different elements. And breaking down the skin as well. I'm not going to read all of these, but the one that might catch your eye is chicken skin. Why is chicken skin being put on a human? So, chicken skin is basically, you can see under the neck. Has anybody ever plucked a chicken before? No, just me. Okay. So, you have? So you normally see when you pluck a chicken, it has like these little funny things where the feathers are. So basically that's chicken skin. But if you kind of like look in a mirror, especially with men who've shaved a lot, it's kind of looks like chicken skin, on a much smaller scale. So that's kind of like my favorite one. I like to call it chicken skin. But breaking up these forms, would really, really help. One of the things I found just using scan data for like texture XYZ and ScanStore, don't just slap it straight on and hope for the best. You do need to work at that, at those forms a little bit more, because our skin is so complex. You've got kind of like cellulite skin and things like that. So obviously, you don't want it to go too much the other way, and you end up like that lady who we saw at the beginning with like really cracked skin and stuff. But you need to add these forms and details in to give it that believability. You'll also notice at the very beginning, I don't use super, super clean, soft models. I like to have a little bit of direction in there. And I find that really, really helps, because when you're thinking of muscles and things like that, they do have that direction. And it just gives it an extra little bit of breakup on the face. The secret behind the eyes. Ooh. Everyone go, ooh. Can't hear you. Oh, that's it. Let's go. Cool. So, eyes. I am big on eyes. I think they can make or break a character. Okay? So, the guy on the right, beautiful eyes, beautiful eyes. The guy on the left, they look dead. Okay? They are the the model is exactly the same. The eyes are exactly the same. But when you're doing stuff for games, you can't just allow the lighting to do its job, because if we do that, we get the one on the left. I had to think right and left there. So how do we approach this? So because the eyes are the soul, the entrance to the soul, you want to spend a little bit of time on that. So I kind of like to break this down. So you have the eyelash. The amount of characters that I see without eyelashes is ridiculous. You need the eyelashes to actually make it look realistic. Everybody's got eyelashes unless you put a sticky tape on your eyes and We don't want that. Don't do that. It hurts. Trust me. The eyeball. We do need the eyeball, obviously. Now, there's a piece here which is, I'm not going to say that, again, dyslexic, can't read it, but it is basically the sweat line. So when I was at Ubisoft, I've got a little story about this. So when I was at Ubisoft, we were creating the faces, and I noticed this sweat line, and I was like, oh, cool. And somebody said, oh, it's the suet. I was like, oh, it's a suet. I've never heard of a suet before. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna look it up. And so I started typing in suet, and I was like, I can't see a suet. Nothing exists on there called suet. And it wasn't until I actually was looking into the file and I actually saw the name, it was So Wet. But with the French accent, it was like suet. So I always call it the suet now. I did that the other day to an art director who we're doing work with, and he was like, what the heck's a suet? I was looking for it on the internet. I was like, oh, don't worry about that. I did the exact same thing. It's just a tear line. So there you go. So always remember your suet. The next one, the eyelid occlusion. This will make or break your character. Why do we have an eyelid occlusion? This goes back to the whole lighting thing. Because when doing lighting for video games, nobody cares about the lighting for characters. That's how it always feels. So it's normally like plonk the character in, and you just have your character running around, and you end up arguing with the lighting artist because the eyes look like they're glowing. Never fun. So with this eyelid occlusion, you can actually put a gradient. So it's normally dark to black, and it gives it that little bit of shadow over the eyes, which helps really sink in your characters. So it stops this thing. Out of everything of the eyes, that eyelid shadow is selling it, okay? So always remember your eyelids. Eyelid occlusion, should I say. So when doing textures for character faces, a lot of people just end up looking at photos and things like that. But there's a lot of information that's happening under the skin. So one of the good things about these is all of the shadows information has been taken out, and you can really see what's happening under the skin. You know, you can see that there's actual yellow pieces and blue pieces, and it's crazy when you look at this guy, because you can kind of see some form of stubbling there, and I don't know if it's the projector or something, but normally it's kind of like a greeny tint. So a lot of people say it's blue, but you can add a little bit of green in there just to spice things up a little, okay? But then when you compare it to an old guy, look how red his face is. He's been sitting on the toilet for a while, squeezing really hard, it looks like. But, no, I'm joking, I don't know. So, but it's really, really interesting to see these faces without any information on there, without any shadowing information. Because when we're painting the textures, we're not painting in shadow, we're painting in the actual colours of the face. Hair. Hair. Hair in characters. The hair of characters, especially in video games. Yes, hair in characters is probably the biggest, most complicated things out of everything on characters. Unfortunately, there's no quick solution for it. Although, the industry is changing. There's a big change happening at the moment with hair for characters. Don't know if you guys have seen the metahuman stuff, the stuff that Unreal were bringing out with the dynamic hair and using XGen. This is a big jump for character modeling, because it's a problem that needs to be sorted, because not every character, I suppose. If you shave it all off, then you're not going to have any hair. But normally every character has some form of hair. And this is as we said, this is Ghost earlier, but this was an experiment I was doing from using XGen, creating the hair shape, and then getting it into Engine. And this workflow is amazing. Now, it can be used in Unreal only when you're right up close to the character. But I have noticed that Unreal have been doing some stuff behind the scenes. I suddenly noticed that there was a hair button in Unreal, so I know they're really, really looking into this problem. I've been talking with Unity quite a lot quite recently, and they have also been starting to add this kind of thing into Unity as well. Now, when I was told this, I was like, yeah, but can it work in a game? They assure me it can. We need to put that to the test, but like with anything in Unity, it takes a little bit of time to get working. But what I'm trying to say is here, you don't have to be amazing at doing Groom. The industry's always changing. There's always new techniques, and it's amazing that we're getting to use the same techniques now that the film industry are using. It's a beautiful time. It just brings a tear to my eye, to be honest. Right. Secrets of texturing. Okay, so you talk to your art director and your game designers, and they say, okay, we want a crowd system of hundreds of characters. And you're like, right. Okay, that's hundreds of textures. That's probably hundreds and thousands of textures. You know, you've got your normal map, you've got your diffuse, you've got your roughness map, you've got yada, 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 yada. The way of creating textures within Substance Painter and things like that is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I remember the day when I had to do it in Photoshop and we had 128 megabytes. No, those days are gone, thank God, because that was hard. But when working with a large-scale game like Assassin's Creed, we couldn't make every single diffuse texture. Well, you could, but it'll take you a very long time. I mean, there was 9 character artists at Ubisoft working on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and we didn't outsource anything. We did it all in-house. It was long. But I will get to the secrets of texturing. Sorry about the jumpiness of the video at the beginning. I do apologize. But what we've got here is a system that can actually change in real time. You can change it from a brown leather to a light leather to whatever color you want, to the point where if you wanted this leather not to be leather, you could change it to metal. So we built a system which, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of something like this, is called a material layering system. So what we would actually do is, in our ZBrush models, we wouldn't put any of this detail in. We would leave it for the engine to kind of do that. Obviously, if you really wanted something to look metal, you'd put a little bit of denting on. And if something was clearly leather, you could make it look like leather. But say the art director says, actually, I don't want that to be leather, I wanted that to be cloth, which you'd probably have to, if you did it the traditional way, go in, scrub out all of the leather looking, redo the textures so they look like cloth. But with this system, we built, it was kind of a little bit like how environment artists do it. You know, they build a stone, a moss, and maybe like, I don't know, mushrooms, I don't know, whatever. And they kind of blend them together. This is a similar thing that what we did with characters. We built about 4 different types of leather, 4 different types of like cloth, like whether it's wool or satin or they didn't have polyester back then, so it wouldn't have been polyester. But it gave us the option to texture these characters so quickly. With this, all we did for the actual process in Substance Painter was we created like a roughness. And when I say roughness, I don't mean the PBR roughness. It's like all of the dirt and stuff like that. So we built one of those, and we created ID maps. So we use the RGB channels, and so if it was leather, it would all be in the R channel. If it was metal, it would be in the blue channel. And then the green channel was kind of like a variation if we needed something in there. Normally it was kind of used as a mask if we had bone or something like that. But because we knew the main elements that we were going to use, we knew there was going to be metal, we knew that there was going to be cloth, we knew that there was going to be leather, pretty much on all of the characters. So we really, really used that to help us design all of the characters. And we knew that because, well, it's ancient Greece. There's not an awful lot of material in there. So with the actual, we use that for mainly the leather and metal. We also had another shader for cloth. And this gave us the ability to do different colors. Because we had that roughness map as well, we could make it look dirty, we could make it look clean. You know, it was all done with sliders because it was all based off of a mask. So we were probably able to texture a whole character in probably a day, you know, because it was that quick. We had that many characters to make. And it's the same with the cloth as well. We had a very, very similar system. Now, what was super freaking cool about our cloth? Because we knew that we needed rips in it. So we actually, well, I say we, is an amazing character tech artist called Mathieu Goulet. He's incredible. He built this system. Now you're probably looking at this and going, what the heck is that on the board right there? Don't have a clue. But this is kind of like a breakdown of what we actually used. This is on his ArtStation, so if you guys wanted to go and check it out, he kind of does like a little explanation. His name's Mathieu Goulet. But he created this system for, normally in creating like rips and things like that, you would like take your texture, you do the black and white alpha, and then you put it on and hope for the best. With this, he actually created like grids. So these grids that you see here, they're the directions of the cloth, okay? So then when we wanted to rip something, we then used the X and Y axis in vertex paint to be like, okay, we want the rip to rip this way, so we'd paint it with the vertex paint. And then in the engine, we could say how much it would rip by. You could literally see it like spreading. It was really, really cool. Very expensive, but very, very cool. So this is kind of like the final part of the talk. Well, it's not the final part, but you get what I mean. So just a few tips for you. One of the things I would say is make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as you can, because you never know what you're going to find out from them. An example, I was doing a model of a character, a female character, and I'd masked out the eyes. And it was kind of like a diamond character that I was kind of like trying to sculpt and whatever. So I masked out the eyes, and I went to do like a decimation of it. And I decimated it, and it had this weird crystal-like effect to it. And it was kind of like, well, so I don't have to sculpt it in by hand? It kind of exploded the mesh, but it looked pretty damn cool. So I would never have found that if I didn't make a mistake. Obviously, it's unintentional, but what I'm trying to say is you never know when you're going to find a different way or a different pipeline because you've made a mistake with something, okay? Ask for help. You know, in the industry, there is so many talented people out there, and, well, some people bite, but just keep away from those people, and they probably need to go into jail. But people don't bite generally. So go and talk to these people, ask for help. You know, if you want feedback from like your art director, they're not going to go, no, piss off, you know. Well, if they do, go straight to HR. But, you know, they're not going to tell you to go away. So always ask for help. Now this one, watch 20 YouTube videos and tutorials. I should have said, instead of 20, like 1,000, because if there's a problem that you've got, especially like in Unreal or Unity or anything like that, there's probably somebody else who's already had that problem. And watching like how to do blah blah, like how to do cloth simulation or something like that, maybe one tutorial will give you a little section of it, but then if you watch another one, maybe in a different language, you know, he might or she might be able to sort out the next part of the problem. So I think probably everybody watches YouTube and things like that anyway to find tutorials, but it's a good thing. It's how we learn. So be a SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm not saying the color, but absorb everything. You know, if you're a character artist, you know, go and speak to the riggers. You know, find out what their problems are when they get your model. You know, but don't just leave it there. Go and speak to the animators as well to be like, oh yeah, they go, oh yeah, this thing's clipping in the head. You know, try and absorb the teams around you, not just your discipline. So speak to the concept artists. If you're in a place where they say, don't speak to those people, just we're in our own little bubble, get out, run away, hide, no. But absorb everything, because that's what's going to make you a better artist. And that's not just for character art. I would say for concept artists as well. Go and speak to the character artists. Go and speak to the animators, because the more knowledge that you have of every other discipline, the better the end product is going to be. Ask for feedback. Now, I know it's scary. It's still even scary for me. I don't like doing it, especially when I ask my wife for feedback and she goes, it's shit. Thank you, I just spent 5 hours just sculpting this thing. But honestly, if somebody says that to you, it's shit, I'm not going to divorce her, so no, I can't do that, no. But, you know, if they say that, why is it shit? Why do you think it's shit? You know, generally people won't say that unless you're posting it on the, you know, online, and online can be a really horrible place sometimes. But don't be scared to ask for feedback, because I don't know if it's just me, when somebody says, oh, that's crap, it's like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to make it better. So I feel like I've done that all my life. Not that walk-in thing, that's new. But, you know, it's a way to keep yourself fresh, asking for feedback all the time. And don't be scared to crit yourself. Something I do is when I've done a piece or a sculpt or something like that, my team knows that I drink a lot of coffee, and I kind of, once I've done something, I'm like, right, okay, gonna go and get a coffee, and I'll come back, put my hat on. I am now the art director. I will crit my work. I will crit it so hard that it will make me cry. No. Don't be scared to draw over your own stuff, you know, and it's something I always tell my students as well, you know, draw over your stuff, point out the mistakes, you know, compare it to something else that you've seen. Is it following that? If not, why isn't it following that? You know, it's not stupid to do it. You just get better and better. And I think that helps with the whole asking for feedback and asking for help as well. Because if you can start finding these problems in your own work, you know, it's just going to make your life easier. It's going to make your lead's life a lot easier as well. Okay. And Finn, we are done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ashley, for your talk. If there are any questions, please either use Slido up here, or just shoot up your hand and I will pass you the mic.
Tough crowd, tough crowd.
Any questions, maybe?
I can go home. Thank you very much.
Then thank you very much, Ashley, again, and thank you all for coming to this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.